Surprised to learn, which is your currywurst.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Because I believe the currywurst has a serial number, like a pot.
Yeah.
Welcome to the AutoBiography, a video series that shines a spotlight on inspiring leaders. It captures their fascinating stories about their personal journeys, key leadership lessons, and uncovers their secrets to success. Today, I am privileged to be joined by Martina Biene, who is Group Chair and MD for VW South Africa. My name is George Mini. Welcome to the AutoBiography. Well, Martina, thank you so much for being here. It's really, really nice to have you.
Thanks for having me.
On the AutoBiography. It's really a treat. And, I feel privileged to have you in our studio, given that you've really just landed here. Everybody's trying to grab on you and we got you here. So thank you so much.
Really, thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite.
You're most welcome. So I suppose the first question is, this is your second stint at VW after being in the group for 22 years?
22 years, yeah.
22 years in the group. Tell us a little bit about your previous life back in Germany under passenger cars.
Yeah, so I started in VW 2001, obviously, to get to the 22 years in 2023. My really previous life is that I'm a theologian by education.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then 2001, I wasn't so sure whether I really want to become a Sunday school teacher and want to have like a nice afternoon 5 o'clock teas with the old people circle or whatever. So I thought, let's think about it. And whilst thinking about it, I was writing 3 applications, out of which one went to Volkswagen, saying, "Hi, I'm Martina. I could probably help you in HR or in communications." And Volkswagen came and said, "Hi, Martina, we are Volkswagen. Thanks for applying. We've got an assessment center, sales and marketing, and we would love to see you there." And it's like, okay, cool, sales and marketing. Let's see. We're going to go there. It was very relaxed. First assessment center in my life. So, and after that assessment center, I started my career at Volkswagen.
Oh, wow.
In the sales and marketing space. That was when Volkswagen back then started to entering the premium space with a Phaeton, which was a D-segment sedan, which never made its way to South Africa, I believe, and with a Touareg 1 year later in 2002. So. And that was so exciting that I never really thought of, now, do I want to become a priest or not? But that's it was just such a nice journey. So I spent a lot of time in sales and marketing at Volkswagen, starting in that we're going to set up that premium market entry for Volkswagen, all the strategy around it. So not only the vehicle, but different customers, different training for the salespeople, all of that. So it was really interesting. Different contracts by then was really interesting. And then I went through like the sales ranks, let's say, was the regional sales manager for Belgium and Luxembourg. From there, I went back to, and then now I got closer to the product already in sales and marketing, was heading the product marketing team for the German market. And from there, then that was around 2010. I came to the global product marketing, product planning. So that's the phase when we're still in a project phase, and like what does this product look like? Not in terms of design, because that obviously is design doing, but like what can it cost? What features do the customers expect? So that whole, like, it's almost more than a 4-year development cycle. I was that sales and marketing input. I started in the Golf family, so the Golf 7 has been like inputted and done by myself or by my team. And from there, I kind of moved up to all small vehicles, so the small car segment globally. That was also like my first, again, professional contact with South Africa from the German side. I was at the Polo launch in South Africa in 2014.
Oh, wow.
Then from there, all the way up to product marketing, finally leading the product marketing, reporting to the sales and marketing director at this time. And then he said, now you must sell vehicles. So we'll look for something where you can sell vehicles. So and then we were seeing, South Africa might be it. And then I came in 2018 to South Africa to become head of the Volkswagen passenger car brand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
wow.
so
that's an incredible journey, and I mean, you compress that into really short bite size, but that spans a long period of time. So I mean, one of my favorite cars in my life was my VW. It wasn't yet a City Golf, but it was the City Golf shape. It preceded the City Golf. And when you mentioned 2001, I was trying to think. I think that was when I was driving that car. It was a really lime green. It had orange suede seats. And it was a 1.5 litre engine, I remember, but I loved that car. Nice. It was my favorite car. I mean, I was a youngster. I think I was like 19 years old. It was one of my favorite cars was that VW. And I've got a lot of good memories with VW because of that car. And then I owned a GTI, which I think was the Golf 3. GTI. It was the bubble shape, the first bubble shape after the City Golf shape. I don't know exactly which model
more
it was.
More like a Golf 4, but anyway,
Golf
as long as it's a
4.
GTI.
It might have been it was a GTI. It was a pitch
yeah.
black one. Oh, I loved that car too. Anyway, that was my kind of VW experience. So personally, you're into things like running, hiking, reading, and red wine, apparently. Tell us a little bit about your passions outside of VW.
So yeah, and that's the great and the beauty about South Africa. There's so many things which around my passions, right? So I love South African wine indeed. Would love to get more also like into the like wine knowledge. So I spent a day or two with some sommeliers in South Africa.
Is your office in Joburg or Cape Town or down at the Eastern Cape?
Nice question. I'm based in Kariega, where our plant is. Yeah.
Okay. So you're not close to the wine farms.
I'm not close to wine farms, but a nice drive at the garden route would bring me immediately, let's say, to the wine farm. So no, it's. So Pinotage is my favorite red wine, which is I just like it very much. I love hiking. I loved also hiking already before South Africa, but there's so many like nice trails up here in the NSO. I was forcing my team that we have a hiking circle. So not every, but a lot of Sundays we were just like around here somewhere hiking, like Henop's hiking trail or something like that. So that was very nice. I also like to do some like more day hikes where you just carry your luggage, but you still end up in a hut. So not like also carrying the tent, because you see I'm not that super strong person. Anyway, so I've been to a Mount Everest base camp, for example. That was probably the greatest hike I've done in terms of length, but also in terms of and then you see the Mount Everest. It's kind of wow.
So tell me about your teenage years a little bit. What were your dreams? Because you told me a little bit about how you got into VW. You applied at multiple places, and VW was the most interesting, and that's the one you went for. But quite often as teenagers, I remember when I was a teenager, I could never have dreamt my career path up. I couldn't have dreamt it up. It's totally different to what I assumed life would be. What were your dreams back then?
So I'm from if you're in any like personality test kind of thing, I'm in Enneagram, I'm a 7. So we are the butterflies. So we love opportunities, and we love this flower, and then we love this flower. So I had a lot of dreams. So always these exciting, because you look for these beautiful flowers always, right? Yes. So probably the first thing I remember is that I wanted to become a firefighter.
Oh, wow.
But that was only a short period of time, and I was really young. And then I was really following up a long period where I wanted to be an archaeologist, with the main topic and researching in Egypt, because I was fascinated by that Egyptian culture, and I wanted to discover a new pyramid or a new Tutankhamun grave site or whatever. I think I'm better where I am now, and not digging in the sand of the Sahara. And after that, I think that was close to metric. I thought I'm going to become a doctor, like a medical doctor, but was very specific on I want to be the doctor who's flying on the helicopter.
Ah, okay.
So I was
so it's a kind of firefighter, doctor,
I was probably always a bit of the
yes.
adventurous side of the job profiles. Yeah, so that were my childhood dreams, and there is not really probably the adventure, but there is not really a reason why I was I can't follow a career path, obviously, and yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, I guess the outdoors nature that you have, running, hiking, and I don't know about the red wine. I suppose that's visiting wine farms. If you're in South Africa and you don't like wine, then I don't know. There's something wrong.
Got a problem.
You've got a problem, exactly. So, how has your thinking evolved now as an adult? What has changed in your mind as you've gotten older and matured?
Yeah, I like this beautiful thing of getting enthusiastic about a lot of topics and yay, and that's a great idea, and let's do that, and let's do that. That of course sometimes also has a bit the downside that you then you start one, then you start the next, then you start the next. I have more patience now in also following probably a bit of a tougher period, or just being a bit routine and not again the next fireworks already the next day. So that definitely changed. I wouldn't say I'm more quiet now, or I'm more relaxed, and I'm not that much driven. More okay, what's the next new thing? What's the next new thing? So that fortunately changed a bit, because that gives me a bit of depth, which I was probably every now and then lacking when I was really young. Yeah.
Well, I suppose most teenagers are on to the next thing, right? And what you're saying is you now have learned to see things through.
Yeah.
I mean, 22 years in VW, that's seeing things through. In terms of your amazing 22-year career. So, if you had a time machine, and you could go and tell your younger self something, what would you tell your younger self?
I would probably tell my younger self, always try to have fun. Not in that superficial sense, but do what you love to do. Because don't plan your career I'm going to do this now, and only check on does that give me any advantage, which I can see now, but rather really have fun and enjoy what you're doing, and be passionate about what you're doing, and do what you would like to do, and then I think you'll be best. And I'm not saying that I didn't do that, but that was more I would encourage my young self again to exactly stick to that, because that that's a very for me it works very well to really look what do I like, what do I love.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like you really got the seeds of those passions going in the helicopter paramedic. If I think about a helicopter paramedic or a firefighter, or a doctor, there's a golden thread there. So those are good passions to have. So now you're group chair and MD of VW South Africa. Mm-hmm. Did I say the title right?
Yeah.
How does that feel? And what have you learnt over the last 100 days that you're going to take into the next 300 days?
So first of all, after my first stint in South Africa, I went back to Germany, and that was the first time when I went out of my sales and marketing environment, because then I had engineers and all areas of the company reporting into myself, again being on the car project side. But that helped a lot, and that was gearing me up for that MD role now, because now I have a plant to run, and of course I have a production director, and I've got the finance side, and of course I've got a finance director, but still it's now about the whole company. It's not about only sales and marketing anymore. So that was a very good preparation for me, my role in Germany. For this job, and I mean, you become a bit humble also, because now there's 4,000 people directly working for Volkswagen passenger car, or for Volkswagen Group South Africa, plus you impact another 20,000-30,000 with the suppliers and with the families. So it's a huge responsibility, which apart from the business side and run it on a daily basis, which is of course, what we're trying to do.
I mean, it sounds like one of your key learnings so far has been, you know, just kind of how humbled you are at the impact your role can have, which I think is an important thing in a leadership role. Is you mentioned another 30,000 people. So maybe as leaders we often forget that our role's impact is not our direct line reports. It's way beyond that.
100%.
You know, and you just mentioned 30,000 potential people that your role impacts. So how then do you adapt in the varying cultures? Because you grew up in Germany, you've come to South Africa now twice, you've experienced German culture, South African culture, which is multi-versed. How do you adapt as a leader to that varying culture or those varying cultures?
So I love being exposed to other cultures anyway, because one thing I love about this is that you learn so much about yourself and your own culture in things kind of which like, wow, that's interesting. I never thought about this. So also like my Germanness coming through every now and then. With the South African culture, as a specific culture, I love South Africa and these South African cultures. So I've been already the first time I immersed myself a lot into that South African culture, which I probably would not do in any culture. I don't know why it clicks so well, but in fact it does. So yes. I'm an Orlando Pirates fan. I'm a Buccaneer, having my jersey, looking forward to the next derby. I learn Easy Xhosa now because I want to also, like, of course I will never be like super fluent, but it's kind of, I want to have good conversations with also the people on the shop floor. And of course we could have them in English, but just because it interests me and I want to kind of understand more of that culture, for example. So I'm trying it, and also visiting my Sangoma soon for the first time, just to
immerse yourself.
Learn also something about it, not only by reading, but also kind of just experiencing it. Yeah.
So was that the draw that because I believe that you fought to come back to South Africa. You know, tell us a little bit about how you fought to come back to South Africa, and was it the culture and the country that drew you back in the way that you're describing?
It was actually when I was here the first time with VW, it was already my second time. Even when I studied theology back then, I had an internship in South Africa, in Cape Town at the UCT, at the Anglican Student Society. So just like, so that was my first, like also a bit getting into contact with the South African culture, 1997 back then. So, and definitely I'm, as I said, passionate about South Africa and also about the possibilities. And I wanted to be part of probably also playing a role in growing these possibilities of the country, of VW as a brand in South Africa, VW as a brand in Africa. So it's kind of, not saying it's a bit explorational, but I saw so much thing which can happen, and I wanted to be part of that, and that's probably also why I'm back.
Being part of making a bigger difference. Yeah. So let's get on to VW for a little bit. How many VWs are produced in South Africa?
Depending on how many semiconductors we get allocated. The plant has a capacity of 161,000. By the end of this year, we want to even increase it to 171,000.
That's per annum?
That's per annum.
Okay.
Unfortunately, last year, because of the semiconductor shortage and partially also because of load shedding, we produced 132,000. So it could have been 29,000 VWs more under normal circumstances. But this year we are quite confident that we are probably not hitting max capacity already this year, but that we are better off in terms of semiconductors than last year.
And how many of those do you export?
Around 70% of the locally produced vehicles.
Because I mean, we're going to get into the EV discussion in a few minutes, and you know that export volume, which is very high for VW, is quite an important part. So talking about the Polo, before we get into the EV discussion, there are a few variants of the Polo that you're going to discontinue. The Polo is probably, I don't think it's probably, I think it definitely is the most popular car in South Africa. On AutoTrader's platform, it's the most searched for variant, and I'm pretty sure that it's the most sold variant in the country as well. You're ceasing to produce a few of those in the coming year. Why is that?
Well, we are not really discontinuing many variants, so we keep our trend lines, our comfort lines, our high lines. Of course, the GTI every now and then we'll have to, but also no, also from an engine perspective, we're going to fully continue with the Polo.
Okay.
And however the discussion also with Europe, and I think we'll get to this, pans out, the Polo for South African market will remain here for a very long time.
Okay, I got no doubt. I mean, it's, if the Polo went somewhere, I think you'd have a cult following that would uprise.
No, the Polo belongs to South Africa and will be in South Africa. Yeah.
So kind of that 70% export number is quite a concern, not for VW, but particularly for me as a country. You know, there's your 70% is higher than the national average of just over 60, I think, % of our vehicles are exported, and the EU has this EV deadline. We call it an EV deadline. I suppose it's a zero carbon emissions deadline. And so given that 70% of your vehicles are exported, which makes export then the predominant part of the VW's business, how is VW changing in South Africa in order to adapt to that world that Europe is putting a deadline on, to not lose the 70% of the export?
So one part, and that's the main part of the strategy I'm also like trying to accelerate now for VW, is that we want to look more into the African business, Sub-Sahara, but also North Africa, to offset potential export losses to Europe whenever they come. And there is that African Continental Free Trade Agreement now, which is coming in place. There is, or I see coming a huge demand for automotive industry, for industrialization in Africa, but also for new vehicles. And also Volkswagen has a very good reputation, although like probably only known from, I don't know, newspapers or internet or whatever, and unfortunately some grey car imports in Africa. So that's one of our strategies, to grow in Africa. To offset export losses to Europe. Another thing is that we are looking into an additional product for our Karicha plant around 2026, 2027, to then run 3 products, Polo, Polo Vivo, and the third product to probably even have more market share in South Africa, but it's also a tailor-made product for Africa itself, to then make sure that we fill the 162,000 or 171,000 capacity by then.
I suppose the market forgets about Africa and focuses on this EU deadline, whereas, you know, Africa is a big continent and probably not being serviced the way that it could be serviced. And you know, good on VW for seeing the opportunity, because my belief is it's probably going to take 30 years to transition South Africa to an EV market. You know, we just don't have the volume and the car park to transition as quickly as we need to, and the load shedding and power problems. You know, let's not talk about that. So let's talk about EVs for a second, if you don't mind, Martina. So obviously, in the next year, 2 years, VW is going to bring some EVs to market, the ID4, I believe, and some others. Those are initially, I assume, going to be imports. But talking about manufacturing EVs, is it a strategy to retool a plant, or does a OEM have to rebuild the plant from scratch?
No, and you can retool the plants. So otherwise, it would be an endeavor, would never be feasible. So the first thing is that we are currently looking into partnering and doing that already with Brazil, the African continent, as South Africa and India, because the speed we develop probably into EVs would be quite similar. That's the current guess. India is now, let's see, probably they're even a bit faster. That, first of all, gives us a good advantage in terms of also internal combustion engine vehicles, because like Latin America is big, they've got their own development, Volkswagen development department, they can do combustion engines, and we can partner with them and probably help them with the right-hand drive development, for example. Okay. So that's cool. With them, we are also looking into a really, let's say, global electric vehicle, which is affordable for global markets. And if we find that would then really increase not the demand is there, but customers who could afford an EV in Africa. Or I don't think that it takes that long like 30 years, I see us potentially building electric vehicles probably 2035.
Okay.
The difficult thing is not like getting a technical release and waiting for the budget speech, by the way, this next week, the week after next week, because we all manufacturers, we are really looking for an indication now. We've got together with NAMSA, we put a EV white paper together on how to kind of start the journey with import, but also with subsidizing imports of EVs, which will never be a huge amount of vehicles. So like loss of tax revenue is probably not the biggest problem, but to start that journey and to start also building public charging infrastructure, and to also like change the customer behavior surely but slowly, and move into a space where then by probably 2035 we've got 50,000 electric vehicles sold in South Africa from Volkswagen, because this is what we do with Polo Vivo currently. So to make sense from Volkswagen as a company, because many plants in Europe also have not transformed yet into an electric vehicle plant. So would they now look at us saying, okay, you do electric vehicles now and export them to Europe as we do with the Polo? No, they don't, because where do we get the batteries from? Coming with a ship to South Africa, then we produce the vehicle here, then we send the whole vehicle up on a ship. So Volkswagen is currently looking really at the CO2 footprint, not only of the production of the vehicle, but like the whole supply chain. And they would now look first into transforming the European plants. They are all about to be not rebuilt, but really like refurbished or retooled, except the one in Wolfsburg, where we said now we've got that special plant because we want to really be fast in the production. But that's the big investment is not in the plant or retooling the plant, but really in the EV development.
Yes. So I mean that's encouraging, and the reason I say 30 years is not that we will be selling 100% EVs within 30 years, but I think it'll take that long for every car that you see on the road to be an EV, because we've got to move the other cars out of the system. So 50,000 by 2035. You know, for me that sounds like a good thing to shoot for. You're talking about EVs, and before we get off that topic, what is VW's outlook on the grid in South Africa given EVs? What is your opinion on the load shedding, and how do we solve this problem?
So now I've got a very strong opinion on load shedding, as I believe every South African as well, because load shedding of course does not help in ICE production. Fortunately we don't have to load ICE or charge ICEs, but still we have to produce them. So load shedding stage 6 means we'll go in short time.
The plants stop when there's load shedding?
From level 6 onwards we'll have to stop. We can't, because and there's also not really like a short-term solution to go off the grid, like power-intense operations, like for example paint shop, which you can't like run with a kind of, okay, let's have a little generator on site. One midterm probably solution to overcome that in terms of production is the green hydrogen initiative from the government. We see whether that is an option. Kucha is, I think, going big on green hydrogen, which is not too far from our plant, but still 30 kilometers. We've got solar panels on the roofs. We've invested in wind wheeling, but that unfortunately only keeps the lights on and the laptops working. So kind of I'm safe, but unfortunately the car production is not safe with load shedding. And also now when we look at an additional ICE product, as I was alluding to earlier on, and kind of in the global scheme of our 121 plants, my headquarters is looking at kind of, okay, are you able to produce in a stable way? Is the logistics okay? Fortunately, port in Kariga is very good. Transnet to transport vehicles amongst the country, yes, there's challenges as well. So really also not even only for EV, the grid is a challenge, but for us now as a manufacturer, load shedding level 6 upwards is a challenge, and also for our suppliers. And then we come again to that like 4,000 direct employees plus another 30 to 40,000, including suppliers, running on short time or whatever. So that's really an issue. We're looking into more on the EV side into energy storage solutions. So we've just like built our first flex pole charger in the plant to show that it's kind of working, and that these chargers can store energy for for vehicles like for 48 hours. You could constantly charge vehicles. You could also run a complex with it, with these flex pole chargers. And for the second generation, and we've just started the discussion with our German PowerCo team, it would be great if these can also feed back to the grid, not only charge vehicles but feed back to the grid, because that would probably even be earlier adopted than electric vehehicles, because then we've got you can run your complex power, with load shedding. So we kind of, and that's also part of, or fun part of that story, to look left and right on what else, because I think in the midterm we also must at least think of something like battery assembly in South Africa or somewhere in Africa.
Yes.
Ideally battery manufacturing, which, because all the raw material is here, but the processing unfortunately happens then in China.
Well, I mean, it feels to me like as a country we've got the raw materials. We export it, we sell it to people overseas. They manufacture the battery, and then we import it, paying their profits.
Exactly.
And then we use it in South Africa. It's almost like it's a no-brainer to assemble the batteries in the country, or in the continent at least.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, that makes me kind of optimistic that if somebody can come along and really at scale assemble batteries, not even necessarily produce them, but at least assemble them,
would be good.
You know, that would be a first step.
Yeah, that's also like what we're looking in, but also therefore you need more volume. Even if I would have 162 Volkswagen vehicles, EVs only produced in that plant, that's for a battery factory, that's again too small. So the smallest size currently of one of our gigafactories is 300,000. So, but then this energy storage solutions and chargers help, because you also you add that to the volume you produce for the vehicles.
Yes, yes.
But
So let's get on to something a little bit fun, which I was surprised to learn, which is your currywurst.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Because I believe the currywurst has a serial number, like a pot.
Yeah.
How did that come about in VW?
So it's always been there since I started there. So 2001, it was already all about currywurst. I don't know when it started. I believe probably even earlier than the first Golf or whatever. So when I started, so Tuesday is currywurst day in the plant. So every Tuesday you can get your currywurst in the canteen.
Yes.
And except like in the real canteens close to the production areas, so where the really hard-working people are, because they need their currywurst 24/7 every day. So there's some canteens where you can get them for breakfast, for lunch, for night shift, so that you just like survive. No, they've got a part number, an own one, of course, because they're Volkswagen branded. But the Volkswagen,
really?
they've got it on the Wurst itself.
You don't do this in South Africa, do you?
No, unfortunately not. But we were thinking of like different business opportunities. So probably it is one, because everybody wants one. Also, like our journalists who have been with us on one of the Germany travels, I think there was kind of, can we have currywurst? Please, can we have currywurst? Yeah, it's a famous thing, and we sell more currywurst than vehicles per year.
Wow.
Yeah, so and so you can also now buy them not only in the canteen, but can also buy them in the supermarket. Yeah, there's also a VW ketchup special recipe, a secret sauce, so to say, for that currywurst, also branded, of course, the bottle.
I don't see why not. I mean, it's German, it's VW. Yeah. It just makes sense. So tell us about the day in the life of Martina. How do you spend your day generally?
So now I'm embracing the beach life of Kariga in Port Elizabeth. So or Gqeberha. My home is now Gqeberha, and I'm a bit like an old diesel engine, although I'm not super old, but I need some coffee before I really can start. So probably an hour. I just now sit on my couch, watch the dolphins going in St. Francis Bay, J-Base direction, and then when they come back, I know now it's time to go to work. I've finished my coffee, the light is on for the diesel engine, we can go. There is not really a routine, because I was, like, the first weeks and months I was traveling so much, and I'm up here in Joburg because our sales organization is here. So I spent time with them. Then I traveled Africa to accelerate this African or African business. So there is not really that routine. When I'm in Gqeberha, I'm not working from home. So I know I love to be with the people. So was going to the plant every day. I was there, and when it was not a weekend, of course. My day currently is it doesn't matter whether I'm now in Joburg or Gqeberha plant, is really meeting after meeting and connecting to people and listening to people and spending time with them, and we're working on that exciting strategy 2035, covering our South African, Sub-Saharan endeavor, our EV plans. So really working on the product for 2026. So really being currently busy to pave the path and shape the future of the company, so that we can tick the boxes of this is what we're going to do by the end of this year.
I mean, that's fascinating. So you don't really have a routine, you know, because other people I speak to, it's okay, I'll wake up in the morning, I'll have my coffee, I'll check my email, then I'll go to the gym, then I'll go to the office, and then I'll have meeting after meeting, and then I'll come home and I'll do X, Y, and Z. So you have a really flexible kind of routine, so you don't try and box yourself into doing one thing.
No, except the morning coffee, that's a fixed thing.
Yes.
And I'm getting grumpy when there's only instant coffee in a hotel.
Oh, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm a coffee nut.
Yeah.
Bean coffee is the only way to go.
Yeah.
I think the other stuff is fake. It's not real coffee.
Yeah. So, but for the rest, I'm really flexible. Of course, there's some routine meetings, like our board of management, which we've got every Tuesday, kind of that. But I just take it as it comes.
Take it as it comes. So then, how do you maintain work-life balance? Because you know, quite often in a very senior role like yourself, work can take over. Work can become everything, especially if sales decline. You know, the moment sales decline, you feel like you have to do something. How do you maintain the balance in life?
So that was one thing I had to. My father was very German, right? And my father, it's kind of, I had to learn that work can also be fun, because that's kind of, okay, this is the work part, this is the fun part. So he was very strict. So he was working, then he comes home, and work was work, and then he comes home, and then there's fun. So there was never, I mean, there was before smartphone times, but there was never a phone call from business at home, because that just couldn't happen. So it's either or. So and now for me it got much more mixed, and I learned, I don't know how I learned, but it kind of that is also fun. And of course you can't be 24/7 only on that work part, but already with realizing that it's not that stressful, because there's also a huge amount of fun. I think that helps me a lot to just, as I said, enjoy what I'm doing.
Yes.
And also on the stressful part, if sales declines, also earlier on, also back in my VW beginnings, you were then busy in kind of, why did it go down? Okay, cable theft again with Transnet. We couldn't bring the vehicles up. We couldn't do this. We couldn't do that. So explaining hours and hours why it's going down. And today, and that's how I approach it, and that's the good thing also about being probably MD or being head of a brand or whatever. It's kind of, okay, yes, we know that's bad with the cable theft, but what are we going to do? So not how do we fix the cable theft, but okay, where can we then sell vehicles, or how can we increase market share? So rather focus on the opportunities of, yes, it's a problem, I understand that, but let's make a plan, as a South African would say. And I think that positive attitude of let's make a plan, even if it goes south, that also helps me a lot in terms of my mental balance, because then I get excited about the plan we're going to make, and
the positivity. I'm busy reading a book at the moment, and one of the stories in this book is the very short writer asked a person in a wheelchair, "Don't you feel restricted, you know, being in a wheelchair?" And the person's answer was fascinating. He said, "I'm grateful for my wheelchair, because without it, I wouldn't have mobility." So instead of focusing on the negative of not being able to walk, he focused on the positive part of the wheelchair, is what you're saying. So in that context, What advice would you give to other people, maybe young leaders coming up in stressful jobs? What advice would you have to them?
I think it's very important is that you know yourself, that you know how you function, how you kind of, and have a really honest view on who you are and how you are, and that helps you. That also helps you then in leading other people. So kind of my first team structures I did were horrible because it was easier to get along with like more or less the same kind of people. So it was like, oh, it's like a copy of me and another copy of me, because it was so easy. But that's what you should put in a team. But you should rather like complement your weaknesses and your strengths. So yes. Like for example, I'm not very much into detail. I can't kind of do that lengthy Excel sheets forever or whatever. And so I need people who love details.
Yes.
Yeah. But therefore you need to know what's like stresses you, where you're good in, and what you're not so good in. I think first thing is know yourself and know what you're good in and not so good in. And positivity always works. Look for opportunities. It takes the same time, also at work. You can spend a day of 8 hours forwarding emails to somebody because you're not responsible, declining 8 proposals because you just decline them. But you can, in same time, you can use in I've solved a problem, I've achieved something, I've got a good idea, and it will be so much more rewarding, and also the dinner table hero conversation with your family or your friends will be so much better than what have you done today? No, I forwarded 8 emails because I wasn't in charge. Cool.
Yeah,
really, fantastic.
So know yourself and focus on the positive problems you can solve, which I think is good advice. So you're a reader, you like reading books. Do you have any suggestions on books you've read that stood out, and why you would suggest them?
I love Hit Refresh from Satya Nadella. I only recently read it again because I wanna that's also part of my mission to have a culture shift in the VW company. So that's what I'm driving with the team now to change the company culture. And I think the journey of Microsoft and how he described it and how he managed that cultural transition is fantastic. So that's very, very interesting book. Because also Microsoft as a company had to change, and we as VW company, we have to change. We'll have to transition into electric. We'll have to refocus from export to Europe to now to Africa. The whole industry is going digital. So how to manage all these challenges, which we have not had the last 72 years, which we've been in this country. Because I'm so much interested in Africa currently, I read a very interesting book. It's called Africa is Not a Country. Starting with the colonial history and why probably many things went wrong with that, and like sketching a continent which nobody knew on a white paper in Berlin 1874, and the journey from there. So very interesting. And I'm a big fan of, and I never know how to pronounce her correctly, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She's Nigerian author, also TED talker. Showing a very, I think, not very well-known side of Africa, at least not to Europeans. So very beautiful stories. My favorite book of hers is probably Americana.
Okay, that's fascinating, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to take value out of that. And then almost done, Martina.
Oh no, just started.
second to last question I have for you, and that is, how do you manage the different stakeholder draws on your energy? Because quite often the people of the business want different things. And your shareholders and other stakeholders want other things like revenue growth, profitability. How do you manage the juxtaposition between the two? Because being MD, group chair, means that you're squarely in the middle of those two stakeholders, and quite often it can be hard to balance.
Yeah, we currently in our current VW setup, I think it's the best one we ever had for the African endeavor. So with Thomas Schäfer now being CEO of our global Volkswagen passenger car brand, who has been in my role until 2020, in my current role until 2020, and I've learned a lot from him. He's a big believer also in the potential of Africa, and he loves South Africa. And now with me knocking at the headquarters door with the one or the other crazy idea, it's not saying that he always says, no, just do it, but he's always got an ear. He's as I said, it's huge support, and because he knows what I'm talking about, he's very supportive and at least open. Of course, we are also KPI managed, but as long as we deliver our ROS or our operating result, there's probably also some money to play here or try this or try that, and also like that startup company, we don't put a lot of risk in. When we start Mobility Solutions Rwanda, let's say, what we've done, which is profitable now after 4 years, but which was a bit of a startup character, but you don't burn immediately like 10 millions, 20 millions of euros or 100 millions of rands. It's just, it starts small, and then we must just get more to that. Okay, then fail fast, and either you learn and improve or you stop it. But it's not, we don't put the company at risk in now trying Africa or trying something new. So with the support and that open ear, and of course delivering the performance which is expected from us. If you don't do that, then you get a problem. Right? But as long as that comes, all the support is with us currently. Well,
that's nice. It's nice that you have a cheerleader, in Germany that that has lived the life here effectively. So very finally, and I'm sad that our time together has come to an end, but your top 3 learnings from your life, what would you say they are if you had to give advice to everybody listening to this? What would your top 3 lessons be? Business, life, doesn't matter.
Okay, that talks to my person. So again, do what you love, where your passion is. Whatever you do, just take a step back and just relax a bit before you take a decision. And the third one, you must all come to South Africa.
That's a good idea. I like that idea. Can spend all the euros here and all the dollars here.
And then you send them back.
And buy all the wine.
Yeah.
I think buy all the wine. That's been fascinating, Martina. Thank you very much for your time. I feel very humbled to be in your presence. And all the best to VW and you. Yeah, thank you. It was great being here. Hope we continue our conversation. Absolutely. Fantastic. No, thank you.